Good morning, community and friends. Welcome to the weekly dot.LA strategy session. My name is Annie Burford and I head the events here at dot.LA. Although we cannot convene in person, our journalists and events team are committed now more than ever to keeping the community connected, informed, and engaged minute to minute. Today we will be discussing Hollywood from home on the seismic changes happening in the entertainment economy. As film and television productions halt and appetite for entertainment skyrockets as a result of the coronavirus shutdown, user-generated content on platforms like Instagram and TikTok are poised for a golden age. Before we dive deeper into the subject and commence the discussion, a few housekeeping items. All attendees will be muted for the duration of the strategy session. The speakers will be displayed on video throughout the discussion. Audience engagement and questions are encouraged. At the bottom of your screen, you will see an icon for Q&A, raise hand, and chat. Please feel free to submit any questions you have in the Q&A section. Sam will field these questions to the speakers in the last 15 minutes. We will not be utilizing the raised hand function. A recording of the strategy session will be posted on the dot.LA website by the end of the day. If you have any speaker and/or topic suggestions for future strategy sessions, please contact me directly at annie@dot.LA. Without further ado, I'm excited to introduce dot.LA's entertainment reporter, Sam Blake, in today's strategy session. Take it away, Sam.
All right, thank you, Annie. Welcome. Oh gosh, not a good start. I was getting some feedback there. All right, thank you, Annie. Welcome, everybody. I am Sam Blake, a reporter at dot.LA, where I focus primarily on entertainment and media. I just want to start off before jumping in to send my best wishes to everyone with us, from all of us at dot.LA. We hope you and the people close to you are managing okay during this definitely difficult time, and just wanted to express that. Our panel today is not about the coronavirus per se, but it certainly seems likely that everything that we're going through is going to lead to some long-term changes once we get through this. Or at the very least, will accelerate some changes that have already begun taking shape, and that certainly extends into the world of entertainment. And that brings us to today's subject, Hollywood from home, with a focus on the rise of so-called user-generated content, or UGC for short. And so that's basically content, if you're not familiar, that you'll see on the likes of Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, and so forth. And before I introduce our panelists, I just want to put our conversation in context with by highlighting a couple of key trends. So number one, on the consumption side, obviously coronavirus has got all of us shuttered in, and the early data suggests that consumers' appetite for content is ramping up. Definitely on the streaming side, streaming platforms, signups are up, numbers are up, but also on the UGC side as well. Data suggests that people want it and are watching more of it. On the production side, you've got the production shutdown, you've got live events canceled. So we're actually seeing an increasing number of celebrities churning out this kind of content, which to me almost kind of makes UGC a bit of a misnomer, but we'll stick with it for now. And you're seeing the likes of musicians Lin-Manuel Miranda and John Legend doing concerts from their living rooms and their bedrooms. Fox hosted a living room concert for America hosted by Elton John. And we're hearing reports of Quibi's news show anchors finishing up their production schedules from their own living rooms in preparation for Quibi's launch on Monday. And this is all, of course, on top of longer term trends where generally production costs are plummeting as while the quality remains constant, if not getting better, and just an abundance of this kind of material. I think YouTube claims something like 400 hours worth of video are uploaded every minute. Of course, it's not all good, but as we could all say. So anyway, all signs point to this trend continuing and likely accelerating, and that's what we'll be discussing today from both the business side as well as the creative side. And to that end, I'm now happy to introduce our panelists before we jump into some questions. First, we've got John Skogmo, who's the CEO of Jukin Media. Jukin is a digital media company headquartered here in Los Angeles. They have offices all around the world, focused primarily on UGC. Over the years, Jukin has acquired a library of over 65,000 videos, which it licenses for placement in TV shows, ads, and websites. It also has a syndication business where it gets its videos to outlets like Huffington Post and Yahoo, and also onto connected TV platforms like Pluto TV and Tubi. And it has its own production and rights management capabilities, and it now boasts over 200 million fans with 2.5 billion views across its various channels. Hello, John.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Hope everyone is well and safe.
Thank you for being with us. Our second panelist is Alyssa Limperis. Alyssa is an actress, writer, and comedian, probably most well known, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alyssa, but at least for now, for her recurring series of videos where she impersonates her mother. These have garnered millions of views. They're hilarious. Alyssa is hilarious. She's super smart. She's been on Conan. She's been on Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. She's been featured in the New York Times. Her own writing has been in the New York Times. And recently she was the lead in an indie feature film, Across from Fred Armisen. And among other favorable and much deserving coverage, she's been heralded as the next Gilda Radner. So we're super happy to have Alyssa. Hi, Alyssa.
Thanks for having me. It's so great to be here. And yeah, I echo everything that you and John have said, that I hope everyone is watching and is feeling safe and comfortable in their own homes.
Thank you. Absolutely. All right, great. So I just want to, before I jump into our first set of questions, I'll remind our audience that we totally welcome your participation. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask our panelists, please do send them our way via the Q&A function of Zoom. And that's also where you can let us know if we have anything stuck in our teeth or any other pieces of advice. So let's start with a couple of questions kind of about the rise of UGC. And I wanted to begin with you, John. You've been in this business for a long time now. My colleague Tammy Abdullah actually wrote a piece about Jukin not too long ago where it described you many years ago sifting through VHS tapes looking for high quality UGC that could be monetized. So I was hoping you could talk to me a bit about how UGC has evolved over time. Obviously the volume has gone up, but what have you noticed as far as the change in quality and variety and general demand from both companies as well as viewers?
Yeah, great question. I've definitely seen the whole arc of UGC, or at least the rise of it, the hockey stick. Is probably a better way to describe it, the rise of UGC over the last 15 years. Not that many people can say they've been doing that their entire career. I think even before the word user-generated content was part of our vocabulary. One of my first jobs in Hollywood, actually 15 years ago, was picking up PO boxes, or picking up VHS tapes from PO boxes for TV shows that had a send in your VHS tape for a chance to be on the show. Think of like America's Funniest Home Videos. I worked on derivative versions of that where I actually had to sift through these tapes, put them in my VHS player on my desk, and see if they were any good, if they could be used for the show. So I've definitely seen it all. I saw the rise in online video when nobody was viewing content online. I was lucky to be one of the first folks to really take advantage of online video, particularly this platform in 2005 that no one ever heard of before, called YouTube. So I was an early adopter of that platform to really source and find content for a lot of TV shows. And I was able to do that at scale. So I produced a lot of these clip shows. I produced shows early on in my career for MTV, Discovery, True TV, CMT, where I started, producing a lot of these clip shows for these variety of cable networks. And really, when I first started, was actually just having people send in their tape. And me being the person I am, I just really took advantage of that these online platforms, particularly YouTube, when it first launched. And so I've definitely seen the rise of user-generated content over time in different stages. A few years after that, we had smartphones come out, where people were uploading content online, but then for the first time, people were able to shoot content, share that content with the world. So then you saw the rise of the social platforms like Facebook. People can share that content, people can comment on that content, which was really interesting to see. The writer's strike happened in 2008, which also I think gave a rise to online video and these type of clip shows. People went to alternative methods other than linear TV to view content. They went online. And with the smartphones, the proliferation of other mobile devices to shoot content, whether it was drones, GoPros, really saw this kind of user-generated content boom over the last 5 years, because not only YouTube is not the only platform in town hosting online video, where there's so many platforms right now, everyone from Snap to TikTok, which we can get into a little bit later, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, so many different content platforms out there hosting content where you can share and shoot content. And so I've definitely seen kind of this rise in exponential growth and user-generated content creation and also consumption in the last 15 years. And, you know, today, you know, Jukin, we license every morning show, talk show, news show around the world. We license every media publisher. We create our own content. We have big partnerships with all those platforms I mentioned. And we also work with a lot of brands and agencies. And, you know, 5 years ago, there wasn't one brand or agency we could talk to, because I think UGC, there was a negative connotation to that word. People didn't really trust it. People didn't really know what it was. And so even now, when you have all this content creation, proliferation of all these devices, it's only I think recently in the last few years, how UGC has been, you know, now more brand safe, more friendly. As in the last few years ago, no brands would talk to you about UGC. Today, I think we do over 1,500 campaigns, TV campaigns, and digital campaigns a year with some of the biggest brands in the world that are now embracing UGC. And it's a really interesting time that we're living in right now with COVID and being quarantined. We're seeing different type of UGC being created. So I can talk on forever about it, but I'll move on, see if there's any questions there.
Great. Yeah, we got a lot to cover. Excellent overview to get us started. I want to turn it out to Alyssa, you know, not from kind of the creator's perspective. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how you started making your videos and what at a broader level is appealing to you about these kinds of mediums?
Yeah, well, not quite as early, VHS tapes. I mean, wow, that's pretty epic. But yeah, I also, I mean, you know, my background is kind of in user-generated content. So I started making videos for a brand. I was working at Condé Nast. And so I learned how to make videos. Like, we would make them relatively cheaply for, you know, like we would do a lot of user-generated content where we would just get people to, you know, send in testimonials, or we would make sketches really quickly. And that's sort of like those jump cut forms that I do. It's really not high quality. The kind of videos I make are all sort of just like, you know, they look user generated. All my videos are shot on my iPhone. And so I started making content before I remember Facebook or Twitter would let you upload. So I remember the real shift, like when I was making videos and could put them on YouTube, it was really hard to get people to go to the link, versus once you could start directly uploading onto Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, but that came later, I believe. I mean, that's when everything changed, because then all of a sudden you're like, I can put everything, you know, I don't have to wait anymore. You know, I was like, I was doing a lot of stand-up. I was doing improv. We did improv together. Sam and I were on a team together back in the day in New York. And, you know, I didn't have agents, or I didn't have managers, so there was no real way to get me auditions.
Pause. I'm getting some odd feedback.
I love it. Great.
Right as I was getting my shout out that I used to do.
Oh, no. Anything better here?
All right, it's much better now, yeah.
Okay, we'll stand. Yeah, so basically, you know, I was doing improv, didn't have reps. I was sort of feeling just like I didn't know how to get out there. And I ended up having to move home to take care of my dad, who was sick. And so I found myself like in the suburbs with like truly no way to perform. And so that's when I started making a lot of videos, and I got to make videos and put them on Twitter. And when people liked them on Twitter, you know, they share them, and it's a really nice way there's exponential growth on Twitter where you can reach people pretty quickly in a way that I couldn't find that I was doing on YouTube. So I just kept making them. So, you know, for a really long time, I was just making user-generated content, sketch videos, weird character videos, lots of dumb wigs poorly placed on my head. And then, eventually I started auditioning a lot more for TV and film and moving in that direction. And now it's been kind of strange with COVID. I feel this weird thing of oh yeah, I remember these days. I'm almost going back to just making videos on my own again.
Interesting. All right, great. I want to move forward now into talking a little bit about the economics of UGC. And so I'm going to turn it back to you, John. I was wondering if you could talk to me a little bit about kind of the common ways that UGC is monetized, the way that companies use it, and kind of what kinds of ROI opportunities they might see.
Well, I think for us, I can talk about the ways how we really leverage and monetize user-generated content. So at Jukin, we believe we've created a media company that's powered by UGC, and so everything we do spawns from that. Everything we do is about that monetization, and the infrastructure we built is how we monetize, and we track that ROI in every single piece of content that we get in. So I think you mentioned we have 60,000, 5,000 plus videos in our library. We acquire or license about 200 videos a week of inbound videos, and that's a really small amount when you said that there's over 400 hours of content being uploaded on YouTube on any given day, and they're not the only game in town anymore. And so we only get a very, very small percentage of videos we know we can monetize really, really well. And we know that because we have a lot of historical data. We have all these licensing and monetization points, plus we have all this viewership data. And so when we're going after and targeting a piece of video, sometimes it's viral, sometimes we've gotten some really great viral videos, but we're tracking all that viewership, we're tracking those shares, those likes on a minute-by-minute basis. And so we're pulling a lot of information. We build a lot of technology to build, think of it like a highly customized filter and CRM system, where we can kind of put a filter on the internet. We can go after a certain type of video, and it'll kick out videos that don't meet our certain criteria, whether the video is too long, whether it's not a user-generated content, maybe has some music to it. It'll kick out certain videos. But once we find and identify a piece of content that we like, we will reach out to the original video owner, and we will either pay a one-time fee, or they will share an ongoing rev share. So some folks want that one-time fee. It's better economics for us for the most part, because we know we can license that content, monetize it over and over, but we're also happy to do a rev share where there is no upfront cost to us, which is also beneficial to us. But in the long run, it will pay out to the video owner. And so the monetization points that we have, we believe we created a marketplace for viral videos or UGC. Think of like a Getty Images or Shutterstock for UGC and viral videos, where we have a licensing platform where we license to, like I said, at any morning show, news show, talk show around the world, everyone from Good Morning America to Ellen, to Ridiculousness, CNN, NBC, any of the big talk shows right now that are actually using a lot more content. We work with the biggest media publishers, Yahoo, Huffington Post, Tribune. They write articles around our content. Then I mentioned we also license to some big brands and agencies. And so we track every single piece of that ROI. We track every piece of that video and try to understand those unit economics so we can make better decisions on what videos we're going to acquire. And so the data that we're gathering is getting so granular that we know that 2 dogs in a video over 30 seconds will monetize better than a dog and a cat under 30 seconds. I kind of just made that up, but that's how granular we are getting about the data to help us make better decisions on what videos we want to acquire. And some of our videos, the top performing videos, have monetized into the 6 figures. And these are videos that are 30 seconds long, 30 second long or less. They're accidental content creators. They're not really going out and trying to shoot this content. Something happens in the video, they catch something amazing. This content for us, we really enjoy the content because it is authentic, it's organic. You can't remanufacture some of these moments. And so as much as we are investing a lot in technology and creating a lot of algorithms ourselves, there's no amount of technology that can predict the reality of a rat dragging a piece of pizza, which we got the pizza rat a few years ago in New York. That was 8 seconds long, but it generated a ton of revenue. And so we're always surprised by different trends in the market and why things go viral. And we're so trying to be as much predictable as possible, but sometimes you just have to throw that out the window.
So John, quick follow-up question. You're talking about the monetization, if I understand correctly, largely from whether it's the rights owner or the creator, on the video, the producer side. I'm wondering, based on what you've seen, and I know this is a little outside Jukin's main wheelhouse, but as to the ways that companies that, as you mentioned at the top, are increasingly receptive to using this kind of content, how are they approaching and looking at this kind of content and assessing, how much money to put into it and whether it's worth it?
Well, I'll say a little bit on the brand and an agency side, because that is one of our fastest growing business. Our television business has always been legacy business, mainly because that's where my background was, producing these shows. But I'll talk a little bit about the agencies, particularly right now in this moment, because obviously it's very hard to do physical production right now. And so I think a lot of brands and agencies, even before this, have been more open to UGC because so many people are creating this content. So many people are consuming this content more than ever before, where a lot of legacy brands, think of your old school publishers or old school TV brands that are putting their content on some of these newer platforms. They're not getting the viewership and engagement that some of these kind of digital first native publishers, these platforms are getting. They're getting a lot more viewership than a lot of these legacy brands. As the legacy brands are trying to figure it out, they know that content that they publish, sometimes being too glossy and too clean, doesn't always work. It doesn't always equate to more viewership and engagement. Sometimes people like that rawness. They like that authenticity that I was mentioning, and I think brands are capturing that. And so the service that we offer to some brands right now, it's a little bit harder now, but when brands are looking for a very particular piece of video, let's say Starbucks that we did a campaign for, they wanted people in their stores who are they know they have X amount of locations, 20,000 locations around the US. They know people are creating content in their stores. They want to tap into that conversation. And so folks like them could hire us to go out and find those videos, those real videos of people and creating content, creating pictures in their stores and their locations that they can use for campaigns. And so I think they really understand, they really want that realness, that authenticity, and be part of that conversation. So many content is being created around brands in their stores and they're using their products and services. And sometimes brands will actually go out and hire us to find that content so they can resurface it. We can curate for them. They can also be part of that conversation. And so right now, where it's so hard, unfortunately, the situation that we're in, we're actually seeing a big demand right now on our licensing side of our business for brands coming to us and saying, how do we find content of people using our products and services? We can't go out and shoot content. We know this content resonates really well. How can you help us, Jukin? And so we're lucky to be in a position right now to help a lot of brands overcome their production needs.
Got it. And it'll be interesting to see how kind of this exogenously brought about situation, which has forced these companies into using this kind of content, may persist after they no longer really have no other choice. And one would imagine that they'll become more accustomed to it, more used to it, and might be more interested in moving forward. Alyssa, question for you. Again, from the creative perspective, how do you think about an approach working, with brands as a representative of a brand, whether it's in your own, UGC or being in a commercial? Do you approach it as it's business, you've got bills to pay and you'll take it? Or do you search for some kind of creative connection or some combination thereof?
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, I think it is really interesting. Like, I go out for a lot of commercials and all of a sudden, for the past 2 weeks, obviously we haven't gone out for anything. And now I'm starting to get emails of like, hey, we're looking for creators to make stuff at home. Like, do you have an iPhone that you can shoot on and give us some examples of your work? So I think it's going to, in the same way that brands are reaching out to Jukin, I have a feeling that, here we go. My connection is unstable. I'll try. So I think the brands are going to probably start reaching out to creators as well, because so I do think that brands are going to start reaching out to creators as well, because surely, commercial sets are like 100 people on a set. So it's going to be a long time before we can go back to having such high production commercials. So they're going to have to, find a new way. But for me, I definitely, especially as in the recent 2 years, I've been very particular about what brands I work with and what commercials I work with, because I want to be, I'm representing myself. And so if I'm speaking on behalf of a product that I don't believe in, or that I don't like, it's going to be clear, and I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. So I really work with brands that I would want to work with, or that I believe in the messaging. Like the last commercial that I'm in that's still running is like a Nissan commercial, and it's with Brie Larson, and it's about, empowerment and a woman who was about to sacrifice or say no to her boss, or just kind of be a smaller version of herself. And then, throughout the commercial, she decides not to compromise. And so for that, it was like, yeah, of course, that's a message that I believe in, and I want to spread that message. So I'm happy to do it. I just posted yesterday, like Kahlua sent me this amazing backgammon set because I played backgammon while drinking Kahlua with my dad. And so, I think like I'm really a believer in like, there's people behind brands, and people are good. And if you believe in the brand and the people who are working behind it, then that's going to be, a better advertisement and a better, product for everyone involved.
Got it. Thank you. I'm wondering now to talk a little bit about, kind of what works and what doesn't. I'll start with you, Alyssa. When you are approaching, your content, you churn out quite a bit. What do you tend to find resonates, if there are any kind of common factors when it comes to the content that you create with your audience, and, what lands and what doesn't? What have you learned?
I'll tell you what lands? 2 dogs, not a dog and a cat. No, I mean, very similar to what Jonathan was saying. It's kind of, there is some of it that's science. Like I know sometimes that, okay, this video's gonna do well. It's historically done well. It's a character that does well, or I can just tell with the pacing, the timing. You make enough videos and you edit enough that you have a good feeling of what will do really well. But then other times there's just some like things that you're like, I would have never, sometimes I spend weeks on one project and then I shoot something that feels just spur of the moment, and then that thing goes viral and the other thing just kind of sits there. So the main rule of thumb for me is like, am I doing it because it's fun? Is it something that feels real? And am I having fun? Am I breaking when I'm shooting it? If I break when I'm shooting something, I'm happy. Then I'm like, this is a good video. This is something that I had fun doing. So then whether that goes viral or not, I'm going to be happy with this product. So yeah, I try to focus on that.
Great. Yeah, it totally speaks to that authenticity that John was mentioning. And, I think, I've heard over the years as kind of brands have increasingly moved in on platforms like Instagram, as people are scrolling, they're coming across things which they can, they're detectors of what's authentic and what's not, are getting increasingly fine-tuned, which of course means those companies are, not getting any of their, ROI there. So, this is kind of this never-ending search for authenticity there, and you can't really put that in an algorithm. But John, I was wondering if you could talk to me a little more about kind of what you guys at Jukin do to try to sift through all of this content that's out there, using technology, using your internal processes to sort of try to turn it into, insofar as it's possible, a science to try to figure out, what works and what doesn't, so that you can predict which videos you'll want to use and license and so forth. So could you just expand a little bit about how you guys do that, and what those processes and technologies look like?
Yeah, so I'm happy to do that. So as I mentioned, what we build is some really great stuff, leveraging some of the video platforms, and we're collecting a lot of that data and putting into gathering it into our system, also using third-party analytic tools to help us analyze all that data that's coming in. So it will filter out videos that, like I mentioned, that are over a certain length. We try to avoid influencers, people who are creating content on purpose. Again, we're finding content creators that are more accidental. And so we'll kick out videos with a certain subscriber count or following account. And then once it narrows down to this very particular, when we filter it out, this very particular video asset, then it's really just putting eyeballs on it. And it does come down to subjectivity. And we have people that are actually looking at those videos and vetting those videos. So I think it comes down to, like, we look at 50,000 or so videos a day from our team of folks that are around the world. So headquartered in LA, offices in New York, London, New Delhi, but then we have other people scattered around the world in different parts. And so we're 24/7. Somebody's always looking at this content, and then narrowing it down to only 200 assets a week. And so the subjectivity really comes down to really great storytelling. And I think that's what's the most universal aspect of anything that's entertaining. Does it tell a really good story? And you may ask yourself, well, how do you tell a really good story in UGC? Well, there's tons of good stories. You have the simple 3-act structure, or something's being set up. I just saw yesterday of a doctor coming home from the hospital, and you saw the mom talking to the kid, and the kid is running up to the dad, and it's a really heart-touching story. And the dad comes in and he wants to hug this kid, but he realizes he can't because he has to be quarantined. And he can't say, he can't hug the kid, and he kind of goes down to his knees and starts crying because he can't handle his old son. And it's only like a 10-second video, but it is so powerful to watch, and it's so emotional, and it does pull at your heartstrings. So I think at the end of the day, it absolutely comes down to really good storytelling. That's what we're always looking for. Does it tell the story? And in this user-generated content, this real video, it told a really, really great story. So it's really interesting to see that. I think that is the universal characteristic of all great video. And I think secondly, thinking about the question is that videos, that when we take the videos, we republish those videos on some of the platforms that we have. And we have some content, we have some owned and operated brands. People Are Awesome, Fail Army, Pet Collective, if you've heard of them, really great big followings, where we're actually taking those video assets and combining them, making them bigger, making them telling a different story, putting together with other videos. And I'll say this, you have to also customize when you are publishing a piece of content. You have to think about what the platform is and customize that piece of content to the platform you're posting and natively uploading that video on. So a YouTube video is going to be different than your Facebook video. Facebook videos will be Twitter. Twitter is going to be different from Snap. It's going to be different from TikTok. If you're uploading on all these platforms, which you should be doing, if you're a publisher, if you're a media company, if you're an influencer, you want to be platform agnostic, but you also have to publish different content, or you can publish the same content, but you have to customize it per video platform in length and aspect ratio and the storytelling, what's going to grab people's attention. It's all different. So I think that's also another key element. Depending on the platform, there's different metrics for success. And I think lastly, in the world that we're living in right now and being quarantined and in COVID-19, you're really seeing, I think, really great creativity. I think it's really forcing people to be more creative than ever, being confined to their homes and being limited with the equipment that they have. Again, it comes back to, it doesn't have to be glossy, doesn't have to be well edited or even well filmed with an HD camera. Most of us are walking around with HD cameras. But my point is that there's some really great content being created right now, given the situation that we're in, and we're seeing viewership go up through the roof right now on all platforms.
And also, Jonathan, I think—
Go ahead, Alyssa. Yeah.
I think
Please.
that storytelling thing, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think like the type of content that people want is going to change too. Like, I think we are all inside our homes. We're not seeing a lot of people. We're really isolated right now. So I think like the stuff I'm even drawn to now is less like fake. It's more like I want to see just a real snippet of someone's life. I want to see, yeah, that family coming home, or someone just goofing around with their family at home or with their boyfriend or girlfriend, versus like, I don't need to see a perfect sketch right now, or I don't need to see like a perfect show. It's more, we're so hungry for human connection that it's just exciting to see bits of real life.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're all in this shared experience together, right?
Yes.
And I think there's a place for escapism, and you could turn on some of those kind of any of the streaming platforms or the TV and escape a little bit. But the situation is, when you're done with that show, we're all in this situation. We're still in this situation, right? And
Totally.
so it's really interesting to see some of the content that's leaning into the situation right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a crazy thing, because like a lot of times with stand up, even, it's like the goal is to play to your audience, because then if I have a show where that's just my audience, I know, well, I'm playing to people who share the same reality or things that I like. And that's when I know it's going to be a good show. And in a weird way, now the whole world has this universal thing that we are all experiencing. So it makes for it makes for like, oh, we all want the same content. We all want the same things. We're playing to the same audience because we are all in the same exact situation, which never happens across the world.
Right.
And it's crazy.
Right. Yeah. Really interesting times. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a question from one of our audience members, John, asking about whether, in a very related sense, whether this may galvanize a bit more enduring interest in live streams and those kinds of broadcasts. I guess probably from users, from celebrities, and perhaps in the same way that over time brands and companies have become more interested in that type of content, that the creators themselves may be too, because I would imagine as a creator it's a bit risky, right? You've got to hope that whatever comes out as you're live is what you want it to be. But of course then you really are totally authentic. There's no editing, there's no etc. And so I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts there about whether you see live streaming continue to be and to grow as a medium.
Definitely.
I'm curious, Alyssa, do you live stream?
I do, but I'm not one of the there are a lot of comedians who are doing it a lot and who are doing it very well. I think my background is more in sketch anyway. So for me, I've just been like, well, let's just make more sketch. But for comedians who their background is a lot more in live comedy, I think that for sure they're turning to live streams, and people are really loving it because it feels, I watched my friend Kat Cohen's live stream. It was so fun. It felt like I was at the show. It felt very much like, oh, this is great. Like for an hour, I really felt totally taken away and like I was at a show. So I think definitely live streams are going to replace, for now, it's going to be a long time before we can have concerts or live stand-up shows again. So
yeah, definitely seeing a lot of concerts. I think I saw a headline, Facebook's live streaming is up 50%. And I have to imagine all the way across all the platforms, it's up. It's really interesting. And I just wonder how consumer viewing habits are going to change after this. Does it mean that we're going to be watching more from home?
Right. Do you guys think that this is just sort of a trend, while given the circumstances, or something that has some staying power once things kind of go back to quote unquote normal?
Who knows what normal is going to look like, So I think that for now we're just adjusting to our new reality, and I think that there's always going to be a need for connection and entertainment. So I certainly think that there will be staying power for as long as, we are in a situation like this, or even if we're in a modified situation. I do think that there's going to be real staying power for it's a new world we're entering into. And so I think people are laying the groundwork for what could be entertainment for a while.
Who knows? I think this has changed. This experience has changed the way that we are consuming media. It's changed the way how we're shopping through e-com. Who knows? Do people feel more comfortable, more at home, and a lot more interactions are going to be like this, a lot more virtual? This is the very first virtual panel I've ever been on, and I wonder if there'll be more after this, regardless if we're in this situation. So it'll be interesting to see if folks are getting used to this, and it's going to change behaviors and change how people operate on a daily basis. It also could have the absolute opposite effect, where everyone just wants to go outside, because I just have dreams of running outside and giving somebody a hug. So who really knows? It'll be interesting to see what we come out of it.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether, and how the kind of a habituation, while we have to do it, will end up kind of sticking with us and making us find out that, oh, actually these virtual panels are pretty cool. And it's nice to be able to do it from your home and still actually feel some kind of genuine connection and authenticity that we talked about, which
and no technological glitches for the participants. It took me about 30 minutes to figure out how to get here. For a while I was a floating blob, so we're learning.
Right. Well, this is supposed to be a strategy session, so definitely one at least tactic is to make sure when you're doing these, give yourself a little buffer time at the beginning to hammer those out.
Yeah, some people might need 15, some people might have needed 3 hours. I just judged. Now I know. Now I have a better strategy. Yeah.
Well, we're happy you figured it out. Okay, I want to, we do have a couple more questions coming in from the audience, but I want to actually ask you guys, let's prognosticate a little more. I'm talking about the future here. So let me start first with John. Unfortunately, it looks like we're sliding into a recession. Marketing budgets are gonna be squeezed, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are as far as the changes you expect to see in kind of the kinds of companies that might be interested in using UGC in the near future, as well as the kinds of content that they might be interested in kind of spending those precious dollars on as those budgets shrink up.
Well, it's a good question, because what really makes this time different from any moment in history is that the entertainment business has traditionally and always been recession proof. Through the Great Depression, people went to the movies. In this last financial cycle that we had, down cycle, entertainment, people were still viewing content. People were able to still shoot content. And I think look at where we're at now is that this is hitting everyone right now, this situation. And so it's limiting our ability to create content. With that being said, I mentioned there's so much creative content being created right now in the world. And I wonder that this situation is going to accelerate UGC. As I talked about the graph and the hockey stick growth in the last few years, I don't think it was ever going away. I think it was exponentially going up. And I think because of this thing that we're in right now, I do think it's actually going to even accelerate it even more. I do think brands are I mentioned, just coming around to it. I think now that they realize that they need to be part of this conversation, they need to be part of and embrace this organic movement that is happening. And so I don't think I knew UGC wasn't going away before this has happened. And I was a big advocate, obviously, pushing it forward. But I think this is actually just going to accelerate the growth, because it's going to accelerate the creation. It's going to accelerate viewing habits, and it's going to catch the attention to brands, particularly right now in this moment. There's not much other there's content obviously still out, a lot of content still out there, but right now, all the content that is being created during this environment is user generated.
Yeah.
Alyssa, from the creator's standpoint, do you find that your kind of personal interest and as you think about the future of your career and as you grow your fan base in these kinds of mediums has changed? Like, I could imagine, previously it was sort of maybe looked at as more of an on-ramp into sort of more traditional, big screens and so forth. But has this altered at all, or your kind of calculus as to how it may continue to play a role in your career moving forward?
Totally. A few things. One is like the idea that entertainment is recession proof is it's so true. And so it's like, even if we don't have, people can't go to movies or we can't make movies, the idea that entertainment is recession proof is a great reminder. Like, people are always going to need entertainment, and especially in dark times, they need it even more. So I think the need is definitely there, and now we're just going to have to adapt the new way of how we make it. So I've always felt about user generated content that there's a lot of control with the creator. Like, there's, auditioning is hell, pardon my word, but auditioning is really, it's tough. There's no control. You go in, you memorize, you prep a lot. There's a lot that you have to just give up to the universe. And user generated content, you do have a lot of control, and you get to just be however you want to be. You get to have a lot of freedom there. So I really love acting, and I really am missing already being on a set with a lot of people, and that I'm really mourning, and I feel very sad that it might be a while before that is a thing again, that we can all be in a room playing together, because creativity is best when there's a lot of people collaborating and when you're really making something as like a family. So that I'm very sad for, but I'm trying to say, okay, well then this is now just a time to go back to your toolbox and your origins of where you started. And so it's like, okay, well, we'll just find new fun ways to make stuff at home. And I've started making videos with friends who live in New York, and that's been really fun. I would have never done that before, but I'm like texting my friends being like, hey, here's an idea. You send me this footage, I'll send you this, we'll edit it and we'll make it. So, there's going to be a lot of new cool things that we all do. And this is what, week 2 or 3. So I can imagine if this stays, then there's going to be amazing films that are made in people's homes. There's going to be amazing sitcoms that are made in people's kitchens. So I believe in the power of creativity in people, and I think people need to laugh, and we're gonna find ways to do it. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, necessity is the mother of invention, and we'll likely be seeing a lot of that, as you alluded to, and as John mentioned, meanwhile, of course, the economics seem to be looking good, as brands getting more interested and consumer viewership goes up, so it seems like it could lead to a whole new way that the creative sector works, and it'll be interesting to watch it unfold. On the flip side, it will upend, if that takes place. It will change, maybe not upend, kind of some of the more traditional TV film industry. And I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts on what are some changes that kind of, once we get through this period, that we maybe to this point have kind of taken for granted or assumed to just be the way things work in the entertainment industry. What will be different?
Well, I think it's going to be a lot slower to bounce back from this. I don't think we're going to wake up one day and all of a sudden we're going to be greenlighting a lot of productions. I think it's going to be a slow roll back into getting to normalcy. Right now we're very lucky that we're actually in 2 productions right now for long form television for 2 TV shows. Each one of them are 22 minutes. And we're just able to do that because it is a clip show and it's voiceover only. And we're lucky that we can work remotely. I think we're going to see a little bit more of that right now. And because it is on a much cheaper budget than it is to go out and shoot physical production. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of this type of programming before it goes back into the big sets, big studio budgets, big television show budgets. There was obviously, even before all this, there was a content creation bubble when it came into high-end scripted dramas, talent demanding a lot of fees. Obviously a lot of this was driven by the streaming wars that drove up the prices to a lot of budgets. I think right now you're going to see a correction in the market right now. Obviously, the pendulum has swung all the way in the other direction, but I think it's going to slowly come back. It's not going to be this big rush that we saw before, even with the streaming war. So I think it's going to be some time, and it may never get to the place that we were right before this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'd love to hear what you have to say too, Alyssa, but just it's an interesting point, John, about not only, obviously the uncertainty is like one of the biggest killers about this whole situation. We don't know. A big piece is like, when is this going to end, of course. But I think another thing is, how will the end look? And I've talked to a bunch of different companies yeah, are trying to plan for just many scenarios where it's like a gradual return to, again, probably it's a new normal, but or is it going to spike back up? And it'll probably vary by industry, but that's just yet another example of how this is a challenging time. But as of course, taking the positive side of things, it's a lot of opportunities too. Alyssa, did you have anything to add on
I just think
kind of
yeah,
how
I
things
think
might change?
Oh, sorry. Yep, I think it's pretty cool how a lot of late night talk shows right now are gonna start airing again on TV, but from home. That's a nice sign that user generated content will maybe be normalized for the big screen. If people are watching their favorite heroes go on live TV every night from their homes with their kids nearby, I think that's pretty cool. If people can adapt to that, then all of a sudden you can maybe adapt to a sitcom that doesn't look perfect. So I think that we might see a change in length of time too that things get made. I know the production cycle is so long for trying to sell a sitcom or a movie. It takes years and years and years, and I'm seeing even with smaller deals for myself, they're happening really fast, much faster than they would have happened if we weren't in this situation. So I wonder if, because the budgets will be lower, because there's less we can do, I wonder if things will actually be a little bit more maybe efficient in the short term.
Yeah, and I'll just say one more thing. I think, it's a bad financial and economic situation that I think everyone that we're all in and heading in. And I think it's going to get a little worse, unfortunately, before it gets better. But I do think the bright side is that every time there is a down cycle, there is room for opportunity coming out of it, and you've seen that time and time again. Out of the last recession, you had the value creation of some of the biggest companies in the U.S. right now, whether that's Airbnb, Uber. You saw this whole kind of industry of the gig economy come up. And so I think whatever happens, I do think there will be opportunity at the end of this for particularly for the entertainment industry.
Hear, hear. We got just about 8 minutes left. I want to make sure we finish on time here. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Quibi. I'm just because it's debuting on Monday. It's an interesting play. For those of you who aren't familiar, just very quickly, it's basically super high quality content that's specifically designed for watching on your mobile phone in chunks of 10 minutes or less. It'll be kind of a combination of some documentary style stuff, some news, as well as what they're kind of referring to as movies in chapters, each of which will be like 7 to 10 minutes long. So, it seems to be like everyone's favorite game, like, will it work? Won't it work? And of course, how does this shut in, affect its prospects, given particularly that the niche that they were looking to go after was those in-between moments, so they called, especially as people were, commuting and so forth. And now those are sort of gone. One of the chiefs of the operation, Jeffrey Katzenberg, still says that there are still in-between moments. And yeah, I'll walk to the bathroom after this. I don't know if I'll be pulling up Quibi, but anyway, that's kind of what he's pulling for, and of course hoping for. So I'm just curious, if you guys have any thoughts on, first of all, whether you think it'll work. I'll start there.
Yeah, look, I think any content right now that's been created is gonna work. I mean, it's like we were saying, it's gonna be so long till we can have full, beautiful sets, and a lot of their stuff is shot beautifully. And I think there is a need for new content and a hunger for new content. And I think it's going to work. It's going to be a great time I think it's a great time to launch, an app right now with a backlog of content that's already made and ready to be watched.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think I was, thinking about this question a few weeks ago, and I would say they're in trouble. It's going to be really hard for them to launch, but now, fast forward today, I think there's a great opportunity for them to launch right now. I think people want to find another way to entertain themselves, especially during this time right now. I don't know about you guys, but I can't turn on Netflix anymore. I'm done with it, I'm done with it. Like, I need something else. And I think it might be a really great time to come in and fill that void for folks. And it's a new platform, and it's a nice new shiny object. It'll be really interesting to see how many people will start consuming on that platform.
Yeah, definitely. And just so all you folks know, from what I understand, it'll be free for the first 90 days for everyone.
Oh, that's
Of course,
great. I didn't know that. That's great.
yeah. And of course, I think that's a relatively recent decision, in response to the kind of the greater uncertainty that the coronavirus has thrust us into. So on a related note, it's kind of separate but related to UGC, and it's just like mobile oriented content. So this is supposed to be super high on Quibi, supposed to be super high quality, for watching on your tiny phone screen. It's got some interesting technology where like you can switch from vertical to horizontal, and the shot will switch, but it still will be optimized for however you're looking at it. I know Snapchat has kind of similar. Call for you, Miss Limperis.
Right.
That's okay. Yes, Snap has kind of some similar technology for like to really optimize mobile viewing, and it's like some interesting stuff where, for example, if a character is actually looking at their phone, just like their phone screen will show up on your phone screen, and it's like a kind of a whole new level of immersion. And so I'm curious, Alyssa, when you think about mobile-oriented content, is that something that's like exciting to you, and the way like these new kind of storytelling opportunities and kind of production techniques are emerging? Or is it still something that's like, I don't know, I'd rather just do like, something that's maybe for a bigger screen?
No, I think it's all good. I mean, I think, yeah, like especially in these dark times, my main focus is like, can I still get to be creative? And so I feel very lucky that the answer is yes. If this had happened 100 years ago, and or I don't know, even probably 30 years ago, 20 maybe, when like 10, I don't know, like if something like this happened, that I would have no ability to create or to make anything and just have to wait until until the film industry picked up again, that would be really tough. So I think it's like, I feel grateful that there's still a way that I can make content and put it out there, and that if people are going to watch, whether it's on their phone or on their TV, if I can still make my content and if people can still laugh, then that's still a good thing.
Right on. Any comments from either of you? We have a question from an audience member about TikTok. Just any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think in general, also the question's also asking about TikTok influencers. I look at TikTok influencers the same as any other influencer. Means that great for them. They've created a great audience. They've been able to create some really great content that their audience really likes, that they're feeding to. And so good for them. I do think TikTok, my thoughts on TikTok is that I think it's going to be the most dominant video platform on the planet in the next year. I've never seen an explosion of engagement from their fans and community. The people that are on the platform all the time. I think the situation that we're in right now has only led to an explosion of more users, more viewership, more engagement. And I think it's going to be the most dominant video platform by the end of the year. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, you're seeing hashtags, you're seeing trends out every single day. These are zeitgeist pop culture moments right now that are in our zeitgeist.
I got to get on TikTok.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we're just approaching noon. I'd rather end 90 seconds early than go 90 seconds too late. So on behalf of .LA, on behalf of all of our audience, I'm sure that was a really great conversation. Alyssa and John, thank you so much.
Thanks
you
so
for
much
having
for having me.
us.
Be safe, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, be
Yeah,
safe.
you stay safe as well. Yeah, and thanks everyone. And as far as I understand, we'll be back next week with another .LA panel on different subjects. So stay tuned for that. And thanks again for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and all the best.
Be well. Bye.
Bye.